Edition of Instagram Live. I am your host for today, Barrington Miller with the Canadian Securities Exchange. And today I'm here with Jim Megann, two N's at the end from Sona, one of our listed issuers. You are based in Nova Scotia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the company is based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Absolutely.
And how's everything going? How's the family doing? How's everyone?
You know what? The family's pretty good. My parents actually ended up quarantining for a couple of weeks in St. John's, Newfoundland. My wife's parents are just sort of finishing up their quarantine here. The streets are incredibly empty. Most people seem to be following the social distancing guidelines, but like a lot of places in Canada, it's very sleepy here in Halifax right now.
Well, it's you know what, you have to think locally, act locally, think globally. It doesn't care about race, color, creed, height, location. I believe it's in 137 countries. It's a pandemic, and
It is.
It's affected the way of life. I don't think the return to normalcy won't be happening anytime soon, if at all. This is probably the new normal, and that's the way it is. So
It is.
it's how is Sona doing with this, and what is Sona's role with this? Because this is why I felt it important to get Sona into Instagram Live and just to get it out to our audience.
Yeah, so Sona is in a kind of a unique situation based on some of the proprietary technology that Sona has. It's very well positioned to have perhaps one of the best antigen-oriented tests for COVID-19 first, and we've been working on it now for some time. So, we're not obviously we're a company that really specializes in the development of lateral flow technology and lateral flow tests. We're not just about COVID-19, but right now everything is about that. It's all hands on deck. Everybody is working and completely focused on getting this test to market as quickly as possible. There's obviously, we believe it'll have a very significant impact on so many communities, but also obviously, as a issuer on the CSE, we're hoping that this has some positive opportunities for our shareholders as well.
Now, how does this test work? How do you administer it? What do you have to do? Or are you allowed to say?
Absolutely. So, Sona is and has just tremendous expertise relating to the lateral flow community, lateral flow industry. Several years back, when Sona first started, and Sona, the genesis came out of St. FX University in Antigonish, and I'm sure everybody is familiar with and has friends that have X rings. They did it. Some of the guys there are the founders of Sona, and they did a phenomenal thing. They created a new proprietary manufacturing process for manufacturing gold nano rods. And really, all of the gold nano rods that have been available and the different manufacturing processes have prohibited them from being used in a lateral flow strip. And the lateral flow strip is essentially a pregnancy test, but it doesn't have to just test for pregnancy. It can test for so many different things.
Okay.
As the rod or the particle, like in most pregnancy kits today, there's small nanospheres, and these spheres are incredibly small, but they essentially carry the biologic material that is looking for something in the test, and that creates your positive test line on a lateral flow kit. So it moves the biologics through the membrane in the center of a lateral flow test. And spheres are, there's there's more than a couple of billion tests, lateral flow tests that are manufactured every year. And certainly 80+% of those tests use these tiny gold nanospheres to move the biologics down the membrane. Sona created rods. And I'm going to give you two visuals to think about, and it's something that your viewers may have some interest in. So first off,
Okay.
people will say, well, how big is that nanoparticle? And to give you a good sense of the ratio of size, if you were to drop a penny on the ground and then take a trip to the moon, and from the surface of the moon, look at that penny, that's about the size of a nanoparticle. It's really small. If you were to envision
that's a great analogy, by the way.
if you were to envision that penny was spherical, not just flat, okay, that would be your nanosphere. And a nanorod, comparative in size, would be more like a Sharpie pen. So if you can imagine, here's the penny and here's the rod, and they both sort of float around in liquid to find what they're looking for. In this case, the COVID-19 virus. You know, the pen, the pen will be a lot bigger, and it'll detect things at lower concentration levels. And that's one of the big functionalities that Sona's rod has, is it can pick out things in these tests at really, really low concentrations. So we knew, and when COVID-19 first came around, the company knew that it had a technology that could really make a significant difference in how well these tests operated. So what we did was we immediately began determining, okay, can we pull this together? Can we get the biologics? Do we have the right partners? Can we do the manufacturing? And after a short period of time, you know, we were able to put together a strong plan. So for those people that have followed us, we're working with a company in the UK called the Native Antigen Company, and they're helping to produce some of our biologics. We also have some biologics that are being sourced right here in Atlantic Canada as well. We also partnered with GE, General Electric, their life science division, and they're assisting us in both product development, and they're also helping us through regulatory approvals. And we're actually going to use their membrane. They have a brand new sort of the latest and greatest, if you will, membrane that the particles and all of the liquid travel in the center of your your lateral flow device. So we're using their membrane, and they're assisting us in the development and getting it to market. So we were able to bring together this consortium. We also have a group called Bond Digital, and Bond is helping us being able to track the results of those tests, so that we're going to be able to contribute to the big data analysis of the spread of COVID, if you will.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to jump in because I don't want to forget, and I know some of our audience members have two main questions. How long does the test take to administer and to get results? Because right now, I believe it's either 5 days or 7 days, or I'm not sure how long, but using what you have, how long would it take for somebody to get those results?
We'd have results in between 5 and 15 minutes.
Wow. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Yeah. And what's the cost? What is okay, let's put on our investor's hat.
Yeah.
I want to invest. I want to be a part of this. I want to help get this to market. Okay, maybe not the cost. What do you need? What does Sona need? How can people help?
I don't know if how people can help at this stage. I mean, we're in the last steps of our prototype. We're hoping to have the prototype completed in the very, very near future. Hopefully more days than anything else right now. And then we're going to do independent testing in some hospitals and some labs as well, which we'll expedite as quickly as possible. And we've gotten great support from validators out there, so they're going to they're working with us to get this to market as quickly as possible. And as soon as that's complete, we move right into manufacturing. We've got manufacturing partners lined up. We've got new manufacturers that we'll bring on in the next couple of weeks as well. So we're hoping to be able to manufacture this product in several locations throughout the globe in the near future.
Somebody's just asking when do we ship? And
love to give you a firm answer.
No, best case scenario, everything starts manufacturing on Today's Friday. Everything starts on Monday.
Yeah,
We
so
start
we think that
manufacturing.
we think that we'll undoubtedly be shipping some goods this month, obviously, but the exact number that we'll be able to ship out this month is it's a bit premature. There's still a number of variables that have to be buttoned down, so we wouldn't be able to say that, but we're very hopeful that that will be the case.
Wow, this is one of those rays of light and a good piece of news.
Hopefully.
Let's see. Who else can you do the test with? What are the risks involved with this prototype? All right, great
Uh,
question.
I mean, the risk involved in the prototype. I mean, we made an announcement a couple of weeks ago. And unless you're sort of involved in the industry, it may not resonate completely. But we said we have a signal, and essentially what that means is the biologics we have reacted with the COVID-19 virus. And once we know we have that, I don't want to say it's semantics because that's just being too general. But once we have the signal, we're fairly confident that we will be able to complete this prototype. And based on what we're seeing in the lab this week, we're even more confident. So it will get there. We will start the manufacturing process immediately after the first validations. So we won't get the Health Canada FDA CE mark approvals before. We won't wait for those. They'll come undoubtedly, not very long after we finish our testing validation, but we'll already be hitting the ground running.
So Health Canada, you're waiting. The FDA.
Yeah, we talk with these guys, but we're in constant conversations with them.
Okay.
We want them to know everything we're working on, what our protocol and testing parameters are. The more conversation we have with them, we know the smoother it will be for us to get this test out.
Somebody's asking, why is your test different than Abbott?
Our test is different because it actually tries to detect the COVID-19 virus. There's only the tests that everybody refers to, the long tests. They're called PCR or molecular tests. And essentially, you take a small sample, and you've got to put it in a very large lab equipment that you typically would only find at a hospital. And those tests can take anywhere from 2 hours to 6 hours to complete. Now, Abbott recently announced a test that is similar. It is a molecular-based test, and it get results quicker, but you still need the lab equipment and you still need technicians. And it's a great test. Don't get me wrong. We've got, really happy that Abbott's got that test out there. But there's some restrictions in being able to get it everywhere. You can't use it unless you've got the equipment, and you can't use it unless you've got a tech. Our test will basically be able to be used anywhere, and anyone, a layperson could use our test. It's not going to be a problem at all.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions. Sorry, I'm on a bouncy ball.
No worries.
We're getting a lot of questions about the prototype.
Yeah.
How big? How small? Bigger than a bread box? Does it take up a room?
Our prototype?
Is it a handheld device?
Our prototype is going to be this big. It's going to be this long. It's going to be that wide. It's just a little cassette. And honestly, what you'll do is you'll take a throat swab, just like they do at the hospitals. You'll do the swab. You take the cotton part of the swab, and you'll just sort of mix it up in a small container of liquid that will be shipped with the test. And then you just take 4 drops, and you'll put it on the cassette, which is, again, probably, this long. And 10 minutes later, you'll have either 1 line or 2 lines. If you have 2 lines, it's positive. If you have 1 line, it's negative. Simple as that.
Wow, the COVID pregnancy test.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about business, a little bit about revenues. People are asking, as far as the company, let's go mid-case scenario. I don't want to go best, don't want to go worse. The third bowl of porridge. How does that affect your business? How does that affect Sona's business? Hitting it right up the middle, and assuming everything goes as smoothly as it can, which it won't, as we know in business, but assuming it goes fairly smooth. What can your shareholders and investors expect?
There's some competitive things on pricing, so I'm going to just use some general terms if that's reasonable at this point. I would say that we would expect that the majority of tests, and we're going to have pricing that is a bit sliding with quantities, but I would say the majority of tests are going to be somewhere in the 25 US range for each test, which is very I mean we're certainly that's an industry standard. If anything, it's a bit light. But we're expecting to have a lot of tests out there, so I'd say 25 would be a reasonable amount for each of those tests.
Now, again, we're doing this live. I never do this. So the purpose of having Sona and having you, Jim, on here is to talk about a little bit about what you do and the positive impact you and your company could potentially have on COVID. I'm not here trying to pump up your stock and tell people to buy and any of that. That's not it. We're here for a bigger reason and a bigger cause, and your involvement in that process of getting us through the pandemic. So I just want to make sure people out there aren't just tuning in and saying, okay, pump it up and get going before the weekend. That's not what this is about, and I just want to make sure everyone understands that. What do you need? What's the next step? What's your next step? What do you need to hear to get this thing going?
Our next step is just to keep working in the lab, to get the prototype finished. As I said, we're in the absolute last stages of that now. And I do think that's, with as I say, God willing, as my mother would say, we'll be there, we'll be there in a few days.
Oh, here's one. Success rate, accuracy rate of the test.
That is not going to be confirmed until we get into the testing validation, which will happen after the prototype is complete. But we expect that only to be a few days as well. But right now, from the work that we're seeing in the lab, we're very encouraged and think that we'll have a very high performing test.
Wow, this is great. There's been a lot of interaction, a lot of people caring, listening, tuning in, and being involved. So. Is there anything else that you'd like the audience, the listeners and viewers to know about Sona and about what's going on?
I think that we're excited to get this test in the market, and I think one of the things that it's going to do, and one of the things we need to recognize about the spread of COVID-19 and any viral infection is, you got to be able to separate people that have the virus with people that don't have the virus. And if you can't make that separation, the spread's always going to continue. This could be potentially a significant ability for us. Just to give you an example, we've been contacted by several large manufacturing companies. They want to keep manufacturing, but they don't want to bring all their staff in with some exposed and some not exposed. They're actually considering using our test on the way in the factory floor, so that they only let people in the factory that they feel don't have COVID-19. And that way you can continue to work, you can continue to manufacture, you can keep your company going, supply, consumers with goods, but you're not putting your staff at risk. And this kind of a test has the ability to sort of change how people are going to be able to interact over time.
Wow, that's and it's just not for manufacturing. Like, you want to talk about, I have kids, they go to school, or they used to go to school.
Yeah.
Starting that process back. But it does, in order for this, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine recently, and he was saying that in order for this to really get clamped down, it starts with the medical profession. And once doctors, nurses, health practitioners, healthcare workers, who are all on the front lines, once it's cleared by them and for them, we can really, really start to flatten the curve. And
absolutely. And like, this is an opportunity. I mean, even if you think about a hospital, not everybody who's in a hospital today is there because of COVID-19. But when you go to a hospital now, you got a real strong chance of getting infected. If we had an ability to test sort of everybody, you could almost split the hospital in two, and those
Yeah.
that have COVID-19 and those that don't, and it makes the hospital a safer place. It would make any place a safer place if we knew, who had the virus and who doesn't. So,
Same with shopping malls, same with airports. Thanks, Phil.
yeah,
All of those things to help us return to
airplanes,
normalcy.
lots of there's so many use cases that people have talked about, and we've got lots of people that have contacted the company on that. So we're doing what we can to get this to market as quickly as possible.
And now, if people want updates, people want to know. I'm sure people want to know about the stock and the company, but they also want to know about this product. And where can they find out information? I know you
Instagram
guys
and
have an
Twitter are
Instagram
great
channel.
places to follow us for sure. And obviously we're going to keep putting out news releases for each of the milestones that we hit, and we'll have information on the website for sure. sonananotech.com.
Oh, I can't.
About that.
Oh, there we go.
I got rid of it. Yeah, it was me.
Okay.
I'm surprised that's the first time it rang
You know
during
what?
this
It was.
already.
Yeah, for our users. So this is both our first times, and so we developed a little rudimentary code. Like if I can't hear, I just start tapping the ear,
Yeah.
or freezing. You just, I don't know, do this for cold. But that was the first time it actually worked. So okay. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time on a Friday, and I just really, really appreciate you, Jim, and Sona, for taking the time to speak not only with me on Instagram Live, but to our audience and our listeners. And I truly, truly hope, I hope you can help with ending this, or at least flattening this.
I can tell you it's as much all hands on deck as you can possibly imagine at Sona right now.
Yeah. So, somebody's saying the stock is halted. I haven't followed it.
No, I don't think it is. No.
Oh, maybe they're not looking at the right one. But oh well. If you have any questions whatsoever about this recording, please send me an email. Go to www.thecsc.com. Send it in the general mailbox. And thank you for listening, Jim. Be well, be safe, and best of luck.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
This is